Hello, this is Dr. Ty Branch, a postdoc with the French National Center for Scientific Research at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, France. My research is on values in science with an emphasis on science communication and engagement with publics. This works on social indicators of civic mistrust and pertains to publics' responses to the Lubrizol fire that occurred in late 2019. In the early morning of September 26, over 9,500 tons of lubricant caught fire at the Lubrizol storage facility near Rouen, France. Black plumes of smoke filled the sky, surfaces became slick with soot when it rained, and the smell of gas lingered for weeks. French federal, provincial, and municipal governments announced that initial analyses showed the environment not to be acutely toxic, or ne présentait pas de toxicité aiguë. The statement was met with immediate doubt. Publics were unconvinced that officials were telling them the whole truth. I argue that part of this doubt stems from 1. Public's use of formal affiliation with government as a social indicator of trust, and 2. A semantic miscommunication resulting from the use of a comparative fallacy when the term acute toxicity was introduced. Both trust and the risks associated with believing these communications are value-rich. I use values to mean the diverse array of ideals people admire and inevitably use to set thresholds for what is scientifically and socially acceptable. In response to the Lubrizol fire, publics unanimously upheld transparency as a value and demanded it from government officials. First, calls for transparency are not uncommon within a French context, especially from sources formally affiliated with government. Affiliation with government forms a social indicator of mistrust in this case, because publics have a history of value-based standards of socially acceptable risk being crossed. For more on this, see communications around the Chernobyl cloud and the contaminated blood scandal that occurred in the late 90s. As a result of these prior incidents, any information from government was regarded with suspicion. Second, in terms of semantic miscommunications, the term acute toxicity was used but not initially defined for publics. When Fire Chief Legal initially explained the term, he described it with respect to immediately causing death. Acute toxicity causing immediate death corresponds to the highest danger rating in the globally harmonized system, Environmental Protection Agency, and the French classification system for toxic substances. However, recommendations for only taking caution by closing windows and staying inside were provided. This employed a fallacy of relative privation, or saying things are not as bad as. This approach ultimately undervalues thresholds of acceptable risk through comparison. In light of ongoing suspicions around the incident, I recommend 1 overall conceptual solution and 2 alternative communication approaches that might be better suited to communicating about risk. Conceptually, I advise aligning definitions in public communications with actionable items, i.e. levels of acute toxicity and recommendations to go with them. Then, from a communication standpoint, I suggest that communicators be more value conscious by considering social indicators of trust. As transparency was demanded in response to communicators' formal affiliation with government, 2 bidirectional trust-oriented communication models, the public participation model and analytic deliberative process, might be considered. These models are designed to encourage public's engagement and communication transparency. The ADP in particular is designed for high-risk situations. This sort of approach paves the way for future research on the efficacy of dialogue-based communication models, especially in the context of environmental crises.